Unpopular opinions, you hate them, and I debate them, so let's fight. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to an episode of Let's Fight. This is the segment where, as the name suggests, I fight with you guys by retaliating and fighting back against some of your garbage, hot, and bullshit opinions. So basically, internet, the show. Now, for those of you who have been on my main channel before, you might be a little more familiar with this Let's Fight series, because this is a series that I have done many videos on in the past on my main channel. So you might be wondering, Joey, why is Let's Fight on the second channel now? Well, for starters, I realized very quickly, especially coming into this year, that a show like Let's Fight isn't really up to the standard that I would like to maintain over on the main channel. Also, over on the main channel, I'm a little more limited as to what kind of opinions that we can talk about and discuss and argue about in great detail. But a lot of you guys didn't want to see the series die out, so I figured, well, how are we able to keep it alive but also make sure that it is appropriate to the main channel? I'll just put it on the second channel. Also, another big difference between the standard Let's Fight series on my main channel and this hopefully more frequent, I would want to try and do maybe like a bi-weekly Let's Fight here on the second channel, is that the participants for the Let's Fight on the second channel would be all of you guys over on my Patreon. Just like the monthly Q&A segment that I've been doing on Patreon for the past like 8 or 9 months as of this video, all of the patrons from as low as $3 all the way up to the $50 tiers will be able to participate in these second channel Let's Fight videos. I figured this was a great way to, I guess, give you guys more rewards, especially for you pre-existing patrons out there, because I just feel really bad that I haven't really been able to give back enough to you guys. So hey, this is a little segment where you can just come on in and shine through. But I didn't also want to make this like a Patreon exclusive, so I figured I might as well put it up on the second channel for everyone to enjoy. So hopefully it's a win-win-win scenario for everyone. I'm hoping that as more and more people start to like join in on this second channel, join in on the Let's Fight series, I can hopefully start to make more Let's Fight series and just standard videos on the second channel, less about anime and more about just anything that I personally enjoy. But obviously, to reel all of you newcomers in who haven't perhaps hit that subscribe button, because you totally should, this episode of Let's Fight is all about anime, and more specifically, I asked you guys over on Patreon a specific question. Who is the worst main character in anime and manga? And it looks like 84 of you patrons have decided to reply to this first episode of the second channel Let's Fight series, so thank you very much for that. But without further ado, let's go through some of your hot takes and garbage opinions about who is the worst main character in all of anime. Nexus 4 says Boruto, not even the main character in his own show. What? I haven't exactly watched a whole lot of Boruto, but I know who the guy on the main cover is and how to read the title of the show. Umaruchan, her name is in the title, but I want to punt her like a football. Yes, I do in fact agree with that. She is not only the worst main character in all of anime in my opinion, but just the worst character in general. Sho Tucker from Fullmetal Alchemist, you know why. What? Do you guys know what a main character is? Well, I'm not the biggest super fan of Fullmetal Alchemist, but I can tell you Sho Tucker is definitely not the main character of Fullmetal Alchemist. Kirito from Sword Art Online, not just the fact that he was terrible, but he spawned countless clones just as bad. You know, I honestly do have to agree with that. As much as me disliking Sword Art Online is a fucking meme, he is one of the very big reasons as to why I couldn't really stand the show and the subsequent shows that were inspired from Sword Art Online. Kirito is really good as a self-insert character, don't get me wrong, because, you know, with any kind of power fantasy, he is a good, cool, perfect character that the main reader or whoever is reading or consuming Sword Art Online story can put themselves into. Imagine them becoming this overpowered character in an isekai world, a fantasy for a lot of people, getting your fantasy girl, living your fantasy dreams out. But I mean, for one, if you just look at it in the third person perspective, just as a character, he is two-dimensional as hell. The fact that he's like a 14-year-old in the first season and yet is able to hack the game while he is inside of the game to save Yui, and not to mention manage to escape certain death about 2 or 3 times, is like, that's like gone beyond plot armor. That's just bullshit. And again, I think the worst sin that Kirito as a character has offended is just the fact that he has inadvertently spawned a lot of Echo fighters and a lot of main characters that wish they were like Kirito, or you know, are there for people who perhaps want another taste of the Kirito power fantasy story, but doesn't necessarily want to go and reread the same story over and over again. Eren Yeager, it's a spoiler why, but trust me, he's the worst. I don't know, man. He's actually a really good character. He's a really good antagonist. Obviously, Yuman has taken the word worst as meaning the most hateable main character, but I would like to argue that just because a character is hateable doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad character. Perfect example of my exact point is from Michael Lamb, who says, Makoto Ito from School Days. Dude is a straight up douche who cheats on his partners every chance he gets, then ditches people and leaves them heartbroken. His ending is horrific, but I've got no sympathy for him. Setting aside the whole fact that me liking School Days and giving it a 10 out of 10 is a meme and everything, haha, very funny, I would argue that a character that you end up hating the absolute living shit out of is not the same as being a bad character. Because there are characters who are bad, being Makoto Ito, and then there are bad characters, aka Kirito from Sword Online. I think the worst characters, or the worst main characters, whatever, right? It applies to both main characters and just characters in general. I think the worst anime characters are the ones that you feel absolutely nothing towards. They are so bland, they are so two-dimensional, they are so flat that you can't even muster up any kind of love or hate towards the character. They are void from remaining in your brain as a memory. Whereas you take a main character like Ito Makoto from School Days. Yes, he is an absolute douche. As the comment said, he cheats on everyone, and then he ends up, spoiler alert, he ends up in one of the most gruesome deaths that I think any main character of any anime has ever gone through. And a lot of people, including myself, when watching that final scene in School Days, thought to themselves, fuck yeah, that's what you can, Makoto, you son of a bitch! I would argue that that makes a really good main character because you feel such a strong emotion. The anime and the story does such a good job at giving you this emotion to throw at that you somehow see it as like worse than, you know, some of the most gruesome serial killers in the actual real world. Yes, Makoto is a character who is bad, who is antagonistic, but that doesn't make him a bad character. In fact, it makes him a very good, well-written character because so many people feel so much hate towards that character, and it's to such an extreme level that even if that character dies in the most gruesome, horrible ways, nobody feels any sympathy towards them, and that is a very strong emotional reaction. And again, as much as I like to meme about it, and as much as I like to praise School Days, I think that's one aspect that School Days actually does a really good job at, but obviously no one likes to give it any kind of credit like that because they just see it in the surface and they just see, oh, good character turns bad and then gets what he wants, ha ha ha. Issei from High School DD is so damn annoying. Is he that annoying? Because when I was 16 watching High School DD, I very heavily related to Issei from High School DD. I think he's just the epitome of every 15, 16-year-old kid who somehow found High School DD deep within the realms of the internet and absolutely fell in love with how degenerate it was. And, you know, a lot of people can say, like, oh, but he's loud and he's so pervy and, you know, he's so, like, I am the main character and da-da-da. I mean, but you have to understand, a lot of times, High School DD does not take itself seriously, okay? You got to give it some slack. If it was, like, full-on serious type of storytelling, which, you know, in some aspects it is, especially later in the story, but especially during the beginning, like, Issei's just being a horny motherfucker, dude. Like, he doesn't give a shit. And I don't think anyone who watched High School DD who ended up enjoying it even remotely thought anything about it. It's just a horny boy anime for horny boys. Kiri no Kosaka from Ore no Himoto wa konna ni kawai wake ga nai. The character is touted as a tsundere when in fact she is lower than that. She is a straight up irredeemable, toxic, and blood-sucking bitch. At least most stereotypical tsunderes have their good moments, but all she does is physically, emotionally, and verbally abuse her brother for what seems to be no good reason. I also, as a fellow otaku and ero lover, am ashamed that she loves the same things as me. I don't see many, if any, in the otaku community act like she does to those she is supposed to treat with respect. She gives us a bad name. Damn, Silas, you really went ham on this girl. Although, yes, I will have to admit, that is one of the very many reasons as to why I personally couldn't stand Orimo. I got like 5 or 6 episodes in, and I'm surprised I even got that far, because looking back on some of the scenes of Orimo that I did in fact experience in context, I don't know how the fuck I could stand Kirino. I just think to myself, what is wrong with her? Like, what is actually wrong with her? There has to be something, like, mentally wrong with a person for you to be, A, that angry, B, that aggressive, and C, just, like, irredeemable to the point where you are so bratty that you think you can get away with it because, what, you look cute? And because your brother has, like, a weird crush on you, even though you're blood-related? It's just, dude, it's fucking weird. Save that kind of stuff for, like, the eroge and, like, doujin world, alright? Like, I don't want to see it in, like, what is perceived to be this, like, you know, love comedy with bits of human drama and all that kind of shit, right? And yet you turn around and give us the collection of some of the worst characters ever made, like, that it's so bad that you can't even stand it. And to top it off, she fucking ends up winning as well. Like, hello? Thankfully, I personally haven't actually encountered anyone who was so touched by watching Orimo and watching Kirino to the point where it completely shifted their personality to become bratty and snobby like Kirino. But I mean, hey, they probably exist out there, and I'm very glad that I haven't in fact actually ever run into that kind of person, because yeah, hands would probably be thrown. Lucy from Elfenlied. The show tries to get you to sympathize with her constantly, despite the numerous innocents she murders, but her backstory is just too over the top and unrealistic. I kept hoping that any of the faceless soldiers she slaughtered would get a lucky shot in the end of the show. Yeah, I mean, definitely, looking back at Elfenlied now, for one, it has not aged very well. It is very, I'm 14 and this is deep type of show, and that's coming from someone who was once a fan of this show. I would argue that most of the characters in Elfenlied just aren't very well written. I mean, the main dude, who is so, like, non-memorable that I don't even remember the fucking name. He literally was just like a placeholder for anyone to self-insert themselves into. The only one I can think of is like that was like somewhat well-written character was Lucy's sister, who, you know, gets absolutely slaughtered many times. But I feel the show would have been a lot more interesting if Lucy's sister was the main girl and not Lucy. I feel Lucy got the sympathy card a little too hard, where it was, as you said, a little too unrealistic. Amano Yukiteru from Future Diary / Mirai Nikki. This dude still, after years from finishing the series, frustrates me probably the most out of everyone. He's one of the most annoying, pathetic, dumber than a rat little pieces of shit I've ever seen in anime. Just everything about him and every decision he makes throughout the show is just baffling, especially in the second half. To this day, I still remember the ending scene for being so dumb, frustrating, and once again annoying. This guy becomes a god, and as he states, for a time of 10,000 years, he did absolutely fuck all and just be emo. Like, what the actual fuck? I hate Yuki in this show, and he is without a doubt one of the worst main characters in anime. Oh boy, y'all patrons have no fucking chill. But that's why I love you guys. I'm probably gonna have to disagree with that statement, because, again, you know, he was definitely built up to be like this wimpy character right from the get-go. After all the shit that he ended up seeing and all the dumb decisions that most of the characters make in that show, from just sheer panic or the fact that, you know, they are psychopaths through and through. Regardless of which one it is, a lot of those characters make dumb mistakes and dumb decisions that end up either getting themselves killed, getting other people killed, or just completely fucking up the world in general. One can argue that that's what makes for an interesting story. Otherwise, if everyone was, you know, like Yagami and like thinking shit out, it would be a completely different anime in general. It wouldn't be the survival horror type of show it built itself up to be. And look, as much as I don't think Future Diary is like the most amazing survival horror anime or manga to be ever made, I do still think that it has some decent elements about it, and I think one of those elements is how, I guess, interesting and off the cuff Amano Yukiteru is as a main character. Yes, he is not the most perfect main character, but at least we don't get like the generic leader type of main characters that we get in most of these kinds of survival horror shows. We get one who is a little wimpy, who is usually kind of reserved for the background while everyone is around fucking up the world without him, and he's kind of just taking it all in, and that slowly drives him mad. And like, look, I'm not saying that the ending or even the story or even Amano Yukiteru himself is like the most amazing main character or story we've ever seen, right? Like, it definitely does have its problems, but I don't think worst main character. No, we've already named like 4 earlier in this video that are way worse than that. Madoka, she doesn't do anything for the entire show. Yes, I realize that's the point of Madoka, but that also doesn't change the fact that she's utterly boring and has barely any personality. Madoka Magica is completely held up by her supporting cast. Now that I think about it, yeah, Madoka is probably one of the most non-striking characters in all of Madoka Magica, which is weird because, you know, of the title of the show. Toru Endo is the worst character of Dagashikashi because all he cares about is women, and then walking in on Hotaru without a care in the world, like, why? I mean, I know there's fan service in anime, but at least let him have more personality than just a mindless pervert. FYI, his sister is better in every way. I couldn't agree more with this statement, and that's one of the few reasons why I couldn't stand Dagashikashi. Just, I think the entire cast of the anime and just the premise that it built its foundations on was just very, very bland and boring. And this is coming from a guy who's usually into slice of life anime where, you know, nothing really happens most of the time. Even then, it was like, okay, we get it. You know, you have this weird girl from the city who is into Dagashi, and, you know, there's the main character who's trying to come to terms with how great Dagashi is. Like, how the fuck did this show exist for more than 3 episodes before it started to run out of ideas? Ash Ketchum from Pokemon. Worst Pokemon trainer, can't even catch them all. Constantly uses Pikachu, which gets destroyed. 10 years old for 20 years. I would argue a character that's been 10 years old for, you know, double the length that he's been around is pretty amazing. That's a pretty amazing superpower I think we all wish we had. Let's be real. If Ash Ketchum was actually able to catch them all, quote unquote, the second half of the anime would get very, very bland. But yes, I do agree that him constantly using Pikachu, you know, even against enemies, which is technically not supposed to work against Pikachu, or with Pikachu rather, like, I don't know, the entire Giovanni fight, for example. As like an avid Pokemon player, frustrated me deeply. It was like watching your 10-year-old cousin play a copy of your Pokemon that you've used in tournaments. I adore Vinland Saga, but Season 1 Thorfinn remains to be one of the most boring angry boy protagonists I've ever seen. He has no personality other than just anger. Whoa, that's a hot take. I absolutely disagree with that. Think about the shit that Thorfinn goes through. I'd be pretty fucking upset too if that was me. Also, I would argue that that's what makes him such a great character, because his strong will to get revenge on everything that he's gone through is what drives the story forward. It's what makes it interesting. That's the whole reason why everyone fucking loves Guts from Berserk, because of the exact same reason. He's using the idea of revenge to try and live out a life that he basically was taken from. His anger is what leads not only him but his people to live that great life that he once envisioned as a child. And as he goes on with that anger, he starts to realize that he is letting the anger control him. He is losing his own way. He's losing whatever vision and goal he had that he actually wanted to try and perceive, but couldn't because he was just blinded by the rage. Come on, man. He's by far not the worst character. He was, in fact, a great main character, in my opinion. And I think a lot of what makes Vinland Saga great was thanks to him. Kearu from Redo of Healer. His revenge plots are some of the most creatively messed up and evil things I've seen in anime. I hated watching it but couldn't stop. Like watching a high-speed car crash involving a 12-car pileup, and at the end, all of them getting hit by a train in slow motion. It's awful, but once you start watching, might as well see how much worse it can get. Hey man, I think that's called denial. From the sounds of it, you watched this shit all the way up until the end. Not because you hated it, but because you secretly loved it. Come on, be real with yourself. If you actually hated it, you would have dropped that shit from episode 1. But no, the fact that you said that it just kept going like a car crash you couldn't stop watching, come on man. Deep down inside, I think you love that shit. And I think you actually enjoyed how creatively messed up some of the Keadu torture scenes were, because they were creatively messed up. They were absolutely fucked in the head. But at the same time, that's what made Read Over Heal as a show just so ridiculous yet so entertaining to watch, because it was so ridiculous, because it was so over the top, and Keadu especially being a character that is so over the top with his revenge that watching him was like watching the Joker. It was just evil, maniacal slaughter that everybody loves about the Joker. And finally, Blake Korkovich has written down Deku because he's a complete derivative knockoff of much more well-defined shonen protagonists that came before him, like Naruto and Goku. The entire show is shonen light, and it is highlighted by Deku's completely poorly written character. And then he proceeds to list down 25 whole explained reasons as to why he thinks Deku is the worst protagonist. You're probably seeing it on the screen right now. It's actually impressive how much this guy managed to shit all over Deku from My Hero Academia. And you know what, dude? I almost have to agree with like most of these. I do kind of disagree with the whole taken from Naruto and Goku, because I just think fundamentally as a character, Deku is nothing like Naruto and Goku. I think that's a little too, you're being a little too general in that comparison. But I can agree that one of the reasons why I personally couldn't watch past season 1 is because I just really can't stand Deku as a character. There's just something about him that just does not work for me. But I think we're gonna leave it there. Thank you to all you patrons who decided to join in on this first episode of the second channel, Let's Fight. Hey, I guess let me know down in the comments below what you thought about any of the opinions that you saw or any of the opinions I gave back. And hey, if you'd like to join in on the next episode of Let's Fight here on this second channel, then hey, make sure to support your boy over on Patreon, patreon.com/theanimeman. You can go from as low as the $3 tier all the way up until the $50 tier if you are generous enough. Regardless, I appreciate it. And hey, if you can't join in on my Patreon, that is completely fine. It is completely optional. But hey, what you can do if you don't want to join my Patreon is leave not only your opinions down in the comments below, but maybe give some topic suggestions for the next Let's Fight. And it totally does not even have to be about anime or manga or anything like that. It can literally be about whatever you think will be able to collect some really shit opinions on. So it could be about music, movies, TV, YouTube, anything really. Anything goes on the second channel. So leave those suggestions down in the comments below. But thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to support the channel, then smack my face right now. Over here next to my head is a couple more videos that you can check out on this channel. We're trying to grow out this channel, so make sure to subscribe. Let's keep making big number go bigger. And thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.